The silence is deafening, and that should tell you everything you need to know right now. George Pickens signed that franchise tag without a single word of complaint. The Cowboys front office is moving like a well-oiled machine, and the media is absolutely losing their minds because they have nothing to report except good news. And before we dive into why this is driving everyone crazy, smash that subscribe button right now because we're bringing you every single Cowboys update the moment it happens, and with how quiet things are, you need someone cutting through the noise to tell you what actually matters. The drama vultures are starving, and I'm here for it because for the first time in what feels like forever, Dallas is operating like a team that knows exactly what it's doing, and George Pickens is right at the center of this whole thing. And the crazy part is that everyone expected fireworks, but instead, we got pure professionalism. Think about what normally happens this time of year with our Cowboys. There's always something, always some manufactured controversy, always some player saying the wrong thing on social media or some cryptic post from an agent trying to stir the pot. But this offseason has been different, and it's making people uncomfortable. George Pickens was supposed to be the chaos agent, the guy who would refuse to sign, the guy who would hold out, the guy whose agent David Mulugheta would be sending subliminal messages on Twitter every other day, but none of that happened, and it's almost like people don't know how to handle it. Pickens signed that tag early. He's been out golfing with CeeDee Lamb looking like they're best friends, and the only thing he's said publicly is that next year things are going to be even better. And that should be music to our ears, but instead, the media is scrambling to create a story where there isn't one. Dak Prescott said it best when reporters tried to bait him into giving them something, anything they could run with. They asked him about George not getting a long-term deal, tried to get him to speculate about his mentality, and you know what Dak said? He said George signed the tag, he'll be there when he needs to be there, they've been working out together all offseason, and he's excited to get rolling, and that was it. No drama, no concern, just confidence from a veteran quarterback who knows what he's got in that receiver room. But here's what nobody is talking about. That response from Dak tells you everything about what's happening behind the scenes, because if there was any tension, any worry, any sign that George was going to be a problem, Dak wouldn't have been so calm and matter-of-fact about it. Now, Tom Pelissero went on the Rich Eisen show and started speculating about whether George Pickens will even be a Cowboy in 2026, and that's where we need to separate the facts from the hot air. Pelissero brought up the fact that when Pickens got traded from Pittsburgh to Dallas, he only cost a third-round pick, and he made sure to mention that teams had concerns about him dating back to college. And look, that's fair reporting because it's true. George has had moments where his emotions got the best of him, and that reputation followed him from Georgia to the Steelers to Dallas. But here's the thing, and this is crucial. The Cowboys knew all of that when they traded for him, and they've created an environment where he's thriving. And you can see it in how he carries himself now compared to how he was in Pittsburgh. When you're surrounded by professionals like Dak and CeeDee, when you're in a locker room that holds you accountable but also supports you, that's when talent meets opportunity, and that's exactly what's happening right now. Pelissero also said that there could be a scenario where a team offers enough to make Dallas move him. Maybe if a contender loses a receiver in training camp and gets desperate, maybe they'd give up a first-round pick and more, but then he admitted he doesn't really see that happening, and that's because it makes zero sense for the Cowboys to trade him. Think about it for a second. CeeDee Lamb has dealt with injuries the last 2 seasons, not because he's injury-prone, but because football is a brutal game and things happen, and having George Pickens as your number 2 receiver is the kind of insurance policy you don't just give away. Last season when CeeDee went down with that high ankle sprain, George stepped up and showed everyone why he's worth every penny of that franchise tag, and you're telling me Dallas is going to trade away that security blanket just because another team has a need? Come on now. That's not how championship teams operate. The media keeps pushing this narrative that there's no way this ends well, that George is going to cause problems, that the Cowboys are going to regret not trading him while they had the chance, but all of that ignores what's actually happening. George has been quiet, professional, and focused, And that's not an accident. That's a guy who understands that his best path to generational wealth is to ball out this season and hit free agency next year with another productive year under his belt. If he plays on the tag this year and stays healthy and keeps doing what he did last season, his next franchise tag would be around $33 million, which means Dallas would either have to pay him $60 million over 2 years or let him walk into unrestricted free agency where he can get the long-term deal he wants. That's the play here, and George knows it, his agent knows it, and the Cowboys know it, and everyone is okay with it because it's a win-win situation. But here's where it gets interesting and where I think some people are missing the bigger picture. Jerry Jones already said they're not negotiating a long-term deal right now, but that doesn't mean it won't happen before the July 15th deadline. And even if it doesn't, that's not the end of the world for either side. George gets $27 million guaranteed this year, gets to prove he's not a one-year wonder, and gets to show the entire league that the behavioral concerns are in the past. And if he does all of that, he's going to get paid in a major way next offseason. The Cowboys get another year of elite production at a position of need. They get to see if this is sustainable, and they get to make a more informed decision about whether they want to commit long-term money to him. And if they don't, they'll have options because the 2026 receiver class could be loaded. This is smart business on both sides, and the fact that George hasn't complained about it shows you his maturity level right now. The people who want drama are going to have to find it somewhere else because the Cowboys aren't giving it to them. Every network that's built a business model around Cowboys chaos is scrambling right now because there's nothing to work with. And I love it because it shows growth and discipline and a front office that finally learned from past mistakes. David Mulugheta isn't sending cryptic tweets. George isn't liking Instagram posts about being undervalued. Doc isn't expressing concern. And the coaching staff is moving forward like this was the plan all along, because it was. When you franchise tag a player, you're betting on yourself as much as you're betting on them. You're saying, we believe in our culture, we believe in our system, and we believe that you're going to do the right thing, and so far George has done exactly that. Now let's talk about what this means for the locker room because that's where this really matters. You've got a receiver room with CeeDee Lamb locked up long-term, George Pickens playing on the tag and motivated to earn his next deal, and a bunch of young guys who are learning from two of the best in the game, and that's a recipe for success if everyone stays healthy and focused. The offense is going to be explosive, defenses are going to have to pick their poison, and Dak is going to have the weapons he needs to make a real run at something special this year. George knows that if he helps this team win big, if he shows up in playoff games, if he becomes a household name in Dallas, his value skyrockets, and that's the kind of motivation that money alone can't buy. He's not just playing for $27 million, he's playing for legacy and for the chance to be part of something bigger than individual stats. And the crazy part is that all the concerns about his behavior were overblown to begin with. Yes, he had moments in Pittsburgh where he let his frustration show. Yes, there were questions about his maturity coming out of Georgia, but context matters, and we can't ignore that he was in a bad situation with the Steelers, and that sometimes a change of scenery is all a player needs. Dallas gave him that fresh start, and he's taken full advantage of it, and if you watch the way he interacts with his teammates, the way he carries himself in interviews, the way he's stayed off social media drama, you can see that this is a different version of George Pickens than the one who left Pittsburgh. The Cowboys don't just develop talent, they develop men, and that's what's happening here. So when Pelissero says he can't 100% guarantee that George will be a Cowboy in 2026, he's technically right, because anything can happen in this league. Injuries change everything, trades happen, needs shift, but based on what we know right now, based on how things are trending, based on the way both sides are handling this, I'd bet everything I have that George Pickens is wearing the star next season, and probably the season after that too. If he comes out and has another 1,000-yard season, if he stays healthy, if he continues to grow as a player and as a leader, the Cowboys are going to find a way to make the money work, because you don't let elite talent walk away when you're trying to win championships. Would you rather have George Pickens at $30 million a year Or would you rather have a question mark and hope you hit in the draft? That's the decision Dallas will face, and I think we all know which way they're going to go. The frustration from fans who want him locked up long-term right now is understandable. I get it. You see other receivers getting massive deals, and you wonder why George isn't getting his. But the business side of football doesn't always move on fan timelines. The Cowboys are being smart and calculated. They're protecting themselves from risk while still keeping one of the most talented receivers in football. And George is being smart too by not forcing the issue and trusting the process. This isn't 2016 Dallas where egos and emotions drove decisions. This is a more mature organization that's learned how to navigate these situations. And the results speak for themselves because there's no drama, and both sides seem content with where things stand. Let me be clear about something because I want to make sure this is understood. I'm not profiting off Cowboys' misery. I'm not here hoping for chaos so I have something to talk about. I want this team to succeed, and I want to cover success, and right now, that's what we're seeing. The media members who've built careers off Dallas dysfunction are struggling because there's nothing to work with, and that's a good thing. That means the organization is doing things right. That means players are buying in. That means the culture is strong. George Pickens handling this situation with class and professionalism is a direct reflection of what's being built in that locker room. And if he keeps it up, he's going to be rewarded for it in ways that go beyond just his next contract. The path forward is clear, and it benefits everyone involved. George shows up for mandatory minicamp. He participates in training camp. He might not do every single rep, but he's there, and he's engaged. And then, when the season starts, he goes out and proves that last year wasn't a fluke. He draws double teams. He makes contested catches. He doesn't get suspended for dumb stuff like he did in Vegas. And he becomes the kind of player that other teams have nightmares about. If he does all of that, his next franchise tag number would be over $30 million, which gives him leverage in negotiations or sets him up for a massive payday in free agency. And either way, he wins. The Cowboys win because they get another year of elite production. They win because they don't have to commit long-term money before they're ready. And they win because they're creating a culture where players trust the process instead of blowing things up on social media. Here's the reality that some people don't want to accept. Dallas is in control of the situation, and they should be. They traded for George knowing his history. They took the risk. They provided the environment for him to succeed. And now they're using the franchise tag exactly the way it was designed to be used, to retain a valuable player while maintaining flexibility. George could have made noise, could have threatened to sit out, could have made this ugly, but he didn't because he's smart enough to know that playing this season on $27 million guaranteed is the best move for his career. The fact that he signed early and hasn't said a negative word since tells you everything about his mindset and about the relationship between player and organization. Now, I want to address something that keeps coming up in the comments and in other coverage, this idea that the Cowboys are disrespecting George by not giving him a long-term deal. That's just not accurate, and it's not fair to either side. Jerry Jones has been very clear that they value George, that they see him as a core piece of the offense, and that they're not shopping him around, but they're also running a business, and they have to make smart decisions about when and how they allocate big money. If George had 5 years of elite production, if there were no character concerns in his background, if he was 25 instead of heading into his age 24 season, maybe the situation would be different, but you have to evaluate every situation based on the facts. And the facts are that George has had one truly great season in Dallas, and the smart move is to see if he can do it again before committing $100 million or more. The comparison to other receivers getting paid is also a bit misleading because every situation is unique. Alec Pierce getting his deal doesn't mean George should automatically get his. Those are two different players with two different track records in two different situations, and the market fluctuates based on timing and need and 1,000 other factors. What matters is that George is getting paid very well this year, he's in position to earn even more next year, and if he performs the way we all think he can, He's going to get his long-term security. Patience isn't always easy, but it's necessary, and both sides are showing that patience right now. So, where does this leave us heading into the season? It leaves us with one of the most talented receiving duos in the NFL, a quarterback who's comfortable and confident in his weapons, and a front office that's not panicking or making emotional decisions. It leaves us with a player who's motivated to prove doubters wrong and to show that he's worth every penny of a massive extension. It leaves us with a team that's focused on winning games instead of being distracted by contract drama, and that's exactly where you want to be if you're trying to make a deep playoff run. The narrative that this is going to blow up in Dallas's face is lazy, and it ignores everything we've seen so far, and I'm confident that when we look back on this situation a year from now, we're going to see that both sides handled it the right way. Is there risk involved? Of course there is. George could get hurt, he could regress, something could happen that changes the entire equation, but that's true of any player at any time. And you can't make decisions based on fear of what might go wrong. You have to trust your evaluation, trust your culture, and trust that the player is going to do what's in his best interest. And right now, George's best interest is to ball out and earn generational wealth. The Cowboys are betting on that, and I think it's a smart bet. Before we wrap this up, make sure you're subscribed, because the season is coming fast and we're going to be breaking down every game, every move, every decision Dallas makes, and you don't want to miss any of it. Let me bring this home with my final take, because I know some of you are still worried about 2026 and beyond. I genuinely believe George Pickens will be a Dallas Cowboy next season, and I believe there's a very real chance he's here for the long haul if both sides want it. The foundation is being built right now through how this situation is being handled, through the mutual respect, through the understanding that business is business, but relationships matter. If George comes out and has another monster year, if he stays out of trouble, if he continues to be the kind of teammate and player that coaches and quarterbacks love, Dallas is going to make it a priority to keep him. And if they don't, it'll be because something changed that we can't predict right now. But based on everything we're seeing, the trajectory is pointed in the right direction, and that should give every Cowboys fan confidence heading into this season. The media can keep trying to manufacture drama. They can keep asking the same questions, hoping for different answers. They can keep bringing on insiders to speculate about what might happen in hypothetical scenarios, but it's not going to change the reality on the ground. George Pickens is a Dallas Cowboy. He's happy to be here, the team is happy to have him, and everyone is focused on winning games. That's the story, and it's a good one even if it's not as dramatic as some people want it to be. Let George cook this season. Let him prove everyone right who believed in him. Let him show that the investment Dallas made was worth it, and then we can have the conversation about what comes next. Until then, there's nothing to worry about and everything to be excited about, because this receiving core is going to be special. So that's my take on the whole George Pickens situation and why I think the silence is actually the best news we could get. Drop a comment and let me know what you think. Are you worried about 2026, or do you trust that this is going to work out the way it should? Do you think Dallas should have just paid him now, or are you good with the franchise tag approach? I want to hear from you because that's what makes this community special. We don't all have to agree, but we all want the same thing, and that's Cowboys championships. Until next time, keep the faith, trust the process, and remember that sometimes the best drama is no drama at all. We're covering every angle of this team all season long, so stay locked in with us, and let's get ready to watch George Pickens remind everyone why he's one of the most dangerous receivers in this league. How about them Cowboys?